Hi everybody, it's Joe Chaffee, Friday evening live stream number 2 today, 7:02 Eastern Time on the 14th of September. Florence now a tropical storm, but it doesn't really matter. The damage, as you've probably seen on TV today and online, extensive. And this was actually, everybody was really wrapped up with regards to the strongest winds dropping off, and you forgot about the storm surge, and you forgot about the heavy rain. That's not the folks that were on our YouTube channel here. This is front and center going forward. There have already been, looking at some of the rainfall estimates, at least based from Doppler radar and scattered observations that I've gotten a hold of, every bit of 15 to 20 inches. It is inland, and continuing to push on very, very slowly toward the west at only about 4 or 5 miles an hour, or even less than that. Let me just check the 7 o'clock update. And of course, remember, folks, what you see here is dated. If you're watching this on a replay, you're going to want the latest from the National Weather Service. So be sure you go to weather.gov, or from the Hurricane Center, NHC.NOAA.gov. And also, by the way, we're going to get to this tonight, Isaac, which had weakened to a tropical depression. Well, that's back to a tropical storm as it moves across the Caribbean. And the Hurricane Center kind of admits that, well, we're not exactly sure what's going to happen. 34.0 north on the 5 o'clock advisory, 78.6 west, moving west at 3. 972 millibars. The pressure is low enough where it would still be a hurricane, but because of the fact that the wind field has expanded the way it has, the character of the pressure is not exactly relating to the kind of winds we're seeing. So the strongest winds are lower than what they would be, but the area of gales continues to be rather extensive. It is 50 miles now west-southwest of Wilmington, 25 miles northeast of Myrtle Beach. So it's a fairly close pass to Myrtle Beach, passing to the northeast of it at the moment. So it looks like the winds there are probably westerly, and then they're going to go around before too long. I'm going to start to, actually, I want to do a couple of things a bit differently tonight. So I'm going to go at it in a slightly different fashion. Let's do the disclaimers first, okay? And we are, of course, going to start off front and center. Let's consult your National Weather Service office or the National Hurricane Center regarding decisions you may have to make in regards to the threat from tropical storms or hurricanes. And weather model maps that we show you on this page are not to be used for making decisions. I've been trying to make that clear every single time we do these videos because, well, not everybody sits through an entire hour of weather. So sometimes you catch it at the end, sometimes in the middle. I put it at the beginning today. And also, really quick, let me just bring attention to my to Patreon. For those of you who would like to, you can support this channel and what we do by joining me on Patreon under meteorologist Joe Chaffee. It's just $2 a month. You get all my website posts. No ads, videos that are just going to be for Patreon members, and we are also going to have a few other things along the way. So it's a good tight weather group. It's troll free and free of flat earthers, free of geoengineering people, and free of the weather controlling people. So if you would consider it, it's, as I said, it's a great little way. It costs a cup of coffee a month, and you get all weather 7 days a week. It's particularly useful if you're in the Pennsylvania to southern New England area, including New York City and Philadelphia. But we talk about weather all over the place, and you get to message me too, which is if you have questions, I might be handy to have around. So do consider it. That's Patreon, and the link is on the descriptor to this video, and I'll put a link also on the chat board for those of you who are interested. Okay, so let's jump. You got the satellite here. We're going to jump right on over to the radar The Wilmington radar is having a bit of difficulty tonight, so I actually have it here on the Newport Morehead City radar, and you're seeing that the bands of rain, if you looked at this morning, and you're looking obviously at this now, it hasn't really changed very much. It has moved basically at a snail's pace, and this, of course, is a huge issue because the rain just keeps piling up. Already jumping on Patrick Greenwald. Seriously? Come on. It's a dud? Really? 9-foot storm surge in some areas with homes flooded out, people having to be rescued from the rain and the flooding. Or I hope you're being sarcastic, because if you're being serious, I may just have Anthony Orr take you off the board. Anthony, you do what you got to do. All right. Anyhow, the bands, you still got some strong bands coming in. By the way, all the green box outlines that you see here, that's all flash flood warnings, and they're going to be up through the daytime tomorrow. We're going to double these rainfall amounts for sure. We're going to take a look at some of those amounts as well. I'm doing some stuff on the fly tonight, folks, so please forgive me if I'm a little short on my sentences and not trying to, which is what I'm doing now. I'm having trouble completing sentences. Doing 3 live streams a day, every day this week, plus my regular TV stuff, plus other things, has just been taxing. I need a break, and I'm hoping to get it this weekend. All right, so this is the same radar, but I wanted to jump over to it so I can maneuver it a little bit. We'll bring up the storm totals so far, and that white area, that's all 15 inches plus from Jacksonville to Morehead City. I know we had somebody on yesterday saying what a non-event this was in Jacksonville, North Carolina, before anything even had gotten started. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe you're more in that purple area where you only had 10 inches of rain so far versus the white area where you've had 15 inches plus. Okay, that's just my gift to you. In the meantime, the red area continues to grow. The 5-inch plus rainfalls down beyond. Well, we got to be careful too with the Doppler, because sometimes on the edges it doesn't always get the rain right. And I want to just check the timing. All right, so this, at least on this map, this goes back to last Wednesday. So this is all cumulative. There are some of the radars have shortened it, so they're not counting what fell yesterday. I think the Wilmington radar did that, and of course they are now temporarily unavailable. Let me go one more down. Maybe we can see from the Myrtle Beach. This is from the Charleston, South Carolina radar, and I thought there was a Myrtle Beach radar, but I guess I was wrong. But the South Carolina radar, there's the back edge of the rain is at Georgetown, but we're not seeing too much. Let me try one more. I'll go back further north. Nope, this is the Columbia, South Carolina radar. So you can, the rains from Florence are just beginning to move in to Florence. So the total rainfalls there actually have already been up to about a half an inch. We'll put the composite on, and you can see the back edge of the rain. Even had one band already moving through Columbia, South Carolina. So the rain has increased considerably in the southeastern, in the southeastern counties of South Carolina. This has been really problematic with the South and the North, and then dealing with West Virginia in some of the conversations as well. It's been a rather difficult thing to do, switching from one direction to another. The WPC Weather Prediction Center hasn't really changed their map much at all in terms of total rainfall. So they're going to have to do something about this, because a lot of this is already verified from their forecast of 15 to 20 plus. So this is going to have to be updated at some point. I'm not sure. This was actually updated at 5:14, and they basically left it alone. So this is rainfall from Friday through next Wednesday. Hey guys at WPC, I think you might want to consider fixing this, because it's a little off. You already have that rain on the ground. Hold on. Let me correct that. Hold on. I take it back. This is actually, I just realized, so this is valid. This is additional rain. All right. Good. I'm glad I got that straightened out. I just realized that this is additional rain. This doesn't count the rain that's already fallen. I take it back, WPC. You're doing a great job. So another up to 20 or more inches in addition to the 15 to 20 inches that's already there. So somebody's going to wind up with 40 inches of rain out of this. All right, no question about it. The flooding is just insane. What's going on there? Here's the by the way, here's a wide satellite view. You've got you've got Florence on land, and there's no danger now of it. Apparently that those southern tracks did not materialize, and the European was way too far south with it. So we got to remember this for the next events. If you look straight to the east in the far right, you can see the edge of Helene, and very close to it is Tropical Storm Joyce, which is no longer a tropical storm, a subtropical storm, but became a tropical storm. And that was, by the way, I believe the fifth one this year that was subtropical in somewhere in its life cycle, and that's a record. And this is Isaac, where the convection is kind of bursted out this afternoon in the East Central Caribbean as it's moving along to the west. Now, a lot of the model guidance wants to just make this disappear, but you have to wonder whether we're seeing, a little bit of development here, whether this might hold on a bit as it moves westward. You also can see strong southerly winds in the northwest Caribbean, those higher cloud tops just flying from south to north. So there are strong wind shear issues ahead of it. It's in a zone right now where the winds aloft are relatively light, but once it gets closer, if that holds together, the center holds together intact, and it gets closer to Jamaica, it's going to run into some of these strong upper air winds. And by the way, you can also see, look at the clouds. The lower clouds are moving east to west. This is a great example of how of the stronger winds in the upper atmosphere and the wind shear that these systems often run into. Because if that's still there when Isaac gets there, it's probably going to get ripped apart. But back to Florence now, and we'll take a look at what the new GFS has, because I'm kind of curious as to what it's doing with regards to the remnants and the rainfall. It's been kind of shifting a little bit further east and south over the long haul. It doesn't look like it changed too much here on the new run. Still showing these additional rains of up to 20 inches plus on top of what already has fallen. If you follow the streak of the brighter white and the little pinkish color inside showing some of the heavier rains, you see the scale over to the side. The track would be up through West Virginia and western Pennsylvania and then across upstate New York, basically right along I-90. The rainfall amounts for the areas in Pennsylvania to New Jersey to Long Island and southern New England, looks like maybe about 3/4 of an inch to an inch or two. But the European wants to keep it more on the eastern side of the Appalachians, showing actually for the same areas in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England, and this would be for later Monday night and Tuesday, of some 5 to 7 inches of rainfall. Actually brings the low center through West Virginia into west central Maryland, and then moves it east-northeast from there off the southern New Jersey coast south of Long Island. If that does happen that way, and it has a fairly, relatively speaking, it has a fairly intense little remnant low from what's left of Florence, you could wind up, I think, with maybe a round of severe weather on Tuesday in some areas where with all this tropical air, you might even spawn a tornado or two. I wouldn't be surprised. Here's Florence coming inland. This is Sunday morning. So look from where it is now, from where it was this morning, to Sunday morning. And you wonder why there's going to be another 20 inches of rain across the Carolinas. It'll still be raining there through most of Sunday. And the low on the European, these are in 24-hour increments, by the way. As you know, we don't have the in-betweens. Eastern Kentucky, and then from there it goes sort of northeast across western Maryland into southern Pennsylvania, and then southeast of Cape Cod by Wednesday morning. So really, it's for my area, it's going to be Monday night and into Tuesday. For Virginia, particularly interior Virginia, West Virginia, eastern Tennessee, eastern Kentucky, southeast Ohio, you're going to see rain gradually starting to spread northward on Saturday, and then further north Saturday night and Sunday. And I think the GFS is kind of underdoing it when it comes to the rainfall amounts there. Going to want to look at some other model runs going forward and see what they have to say. But I think there's a fairly good chance for a fast, for my area, for those of you who are watching in my area, eastern PA to southern New England, 6 to 9 hours of drenching rains where we wind up with several inches of rain before it moves on out. I want to pull up at least some of the model guidance here, and then maybe we could spend a little bit of time on Isaac. So here's the new 18Z hurricane model tracks. You know, the hurricane model track guidance has worked out pretty well with Florence for the most part. There were some variations, but we seemed to get a good handle on it. Notice that they stay pretty tightly clustered. Most of them bring the remnant low across Pennsylvania. Most are bringing it just north of New York City into the Hudson Valley, but there are a few that are bringing it south. So it's close enough where there could be a problem, and I think there might be somebody's going to get underneath the core circulation of whatever is left, and that is the other key here. Think back to Alberto when we had a surviving intact core circulation that ran up from the Florida Panhandle up into the Great Lakes, and you could still see it after it had been inland for days. That's going to be interesting to see if you see that signature on the radar all the way through the period here. Whoever gets under that is going to get clobbered for several to 6 hours with some very heavy rainfalls until it races away to the northeast. And eventually some of that probably will get into Nova Scotia and into Newfoundland, sort of behaving like at that point it's, of course, a post-tropical or an extra-tropical low. But looks like some of that rain, the rains from Florence, will eventually get into Nova Scotia and over into Newfoundland. So you folks that are watching from southeastern Canada, I know I do have viewers that watch from there. Just be aware that you're probably going to get a shot of rain out of this. Why don't we take a look at a close-up view of Isaac? By the way, if you look quick on this satellite shot here on Tropical Tidbits, you can see how the center of Helene is exposed in 3 quadrants, and only in the north and northwest part of the storm where you still have convection. There's very little going on weather-wise as you go east, south, and southwest of the center. Certainly a sign of shearing. And by the way, if you are watching, this is a good time, I guess, to show this, but the hurricane, again, don't use this. These are not official maps. You want to seek official information. But the hurricane track models actually have this moving over Ireland in 72 hours. So that would be Saturday, Sunday, Monday afternoon here. It's Monday evening for you. So during the day Monday, this is all going to hook up, by the way, with a very, very strong Atlantic storm that's developing. And it's basically going to maintain an identity as it starts to get involved in that storm circulation and gets lifted up to the northeast. So if you are watching from northwestern Europe, from Britain, from Scotland, from Ireland, from Wales, you might want to check your local government weather service offices to see what they're saying with respect to Helene. Now, let's come back to this. We want to go to Isaac really fast. And then I want to come to the board early with you guys so we can spend a little quality time. And here's Isaac's tracks on the models. And notice a lot of variation here. Okay, they're really spread out wide after the first 12 or 24 hours. And part of this has to do with intensity. If it stays a weak system, it's liable to go more on those southern tracks. But if we wind up with an intact circulation that maybe gets a little stronger, may not have to get that much stronger, it may respond to some of the higher level steering, which would turn it more west-northwest, or in some model cases, even northwest. I have to just say right off the bat, I have not. This is probably the first time I've even looked at these Isaac tracking maps in about 5 days. I really haven't spent too much time because we've been sort of all wrapped up in Florence. But I will pay a little more attention to this now that the system has went back to tropical storm status. So we're coming up on 23 minutes after 7 Eastern time. I think this is probably a good place for me to come to the board and we can talk a little bit. I will, going to try to address whatever questions you have. We've been doing so many maps and so much coverage. I have to tell you, I'm a little bit, I'm a bit tired. The word I'm looking for is tired. Super chats, thank you. Ellen Abraham from Alaska. Have you gotten your first snow yet? I know you probably haven't, but have you gotten your first snow yet? I'd be very curious about that. And William Huber, thank you so much. I'll see you on Sunday at the Deer Park Library in Deer Park, New York on Long Island at 1 o'clock. For those of you who are in my area and want to come out, we'll be talking about hurricanes, and we'll definitely be talking about Florence and whether we're going to get some heavy rains in my area on Tuesday. Wayne Hilliard, thank you again for hitting Super Chat. Really appreciate it. And Stephanie Sparks hitting Super Chat tonight. Thank you so much. Okay, rolling back on the chat board. We're going to get to some questions. Philip Neary, you asked me what my favorite cigar is. It's the La Flor Dominica 700 Maduro. That is my favorite cigar. So are you a cigar smoker? I'd be curious as to what your favorite is. Chad Crawford, the wind field must be huge because Northwest Georgia has already had 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts and frequent to 20. So I guess you're saying it's 20 to 30. Yeah, the wind field has really expanded in this. That's why the sustained winds are dropped the way they did, even though the pressure stayed for a hurricane with the pressure when it was out in the water in the 950s. It could have easily been a Category 3 at 115 or 120 knots. But because the wind field expanded, the pressure gradient is a little looser. And as a result, you don't have that very, very tight core of winds of 100 mile an hour plus. On the other hand, even though the sustained winds did drop, there were a lot of spots that reported gusts over 100 miles an hour, including in Wilmington itself. And that I was watching that all during last night and this morning, seeing all these places reporting gusts to 100. I think I saw a few sustained winds up in the low 70s, but the gusts to 100 were. It was surprising to me how much we saw of that, and also the media's attention. And this is a good lesson for everybody, by the way. The media's a constant focus on the strongest winds, and they forgot about two things. We were talking about this for the last few days. Storm surge and the rain. Those were really front and center. The wind is destructive, no doubt. And of course, if you get buzzsawed by a Category 5 hurricane, you're going to have the winds ripping everything to shreds. But in this situation, because of the fact that it's so slow moving, that the winds became less of an issue, obviously, as they dropped off. We weren't eliminated, but they certainly became less of an issue. So everybody looked at the fact that, look, went from 120 to 90. This is a big, as that person said earlier, this is a dud and all the rest of it. Just on the perception of the wind before it even came on shore. The storm surge flooding around Pamlico Sound was extensive, and in other places as well, and the rain. That was always going to wind up being front and center here because of the slow movement that we were talking about, feet of rain. And that is playing itself out. So, we have to remember that it's a three-prong situation here when you deal with hurricanes. Harvey last year, they got both the rain and the wind, and in some places, the storm surge. So they got the trifecta, okay? In this instance, it was the double or the exacta of rain and storm surge. And the wind, well, again, not to completely discount it, but on the list of which is doing the causing the most problems, that really sort of falls third on the list. The storm surge now less of a factor with the storm inland, and it's gradually diminishing as the water hopefully begins to drain out. That is another problem, by the way, for coastal North Carolina, is the fact that anywhere north of the center with the storm moving westward, the wind is coming in still from off the water. They have not seen any kind of significant wind shift to the northwest, which would help to push the water out and help to drain it out. That has not happened. And it's not going to happen until the remnant low gets up somewhere into the central Appalachians. And maybe at that point, you could start to see the winds will start to go around and the rains will begin to diminish. James NASCAR, a lot of these weather stations will be busted and won't work due to the hurricane, and we'll have to redo them. Well, yeah, that's quite true. And I had, when I was looking at the observations on the map with the National Weather Service EDD, the electronic data display, I had it set to put every observation that was on there, and usually the map gets completely populated to the point where they're all on top of each other and you can't even read them. But that was not the case across the Carolinas overnight and this morning. The observing stations were basically few and far between. Dangerous Infran, thanks for coming back. Yeah, don't worry. I'm not paying too much. I'm not paying attention to what the people that come on apparently who have nothing else better to do but to sit and write negative, offhanded. I'm trying to be funny types of posts, so no worries there. Yes, tropical news is definitely a lot of rain. And how big miles across is the wind field of the tropical storm force winds? On the last advisory, which if you ever want to look that up, if you go to the forecast advisory on nhc.noaa.gov, if you're not familiar with this, so here's the page, and you could, for future reference here. So here's your page, and the first thing you'll see is is their map with all the individual storms that are on there. So we've got 4 tropical storms here on at the same time, and there's the disturbance that's moving into the Texas coast where they're getting flooding issues from there, and there's all sorts of flood watches up across much of South and Southeast Texas. In the meantime, I might come back to that. If I got some time and I don't forget, maybe somebody remind me, we'll come back to that and talk about the rain that's going on there. But on this, if you go down and you look at, these are all the individual storms in their advisories, but here's Florence. If you go to the one that says forecast advisory, this used to be the old marine advisory. They changed it to call it the forecast advisory. And you just go down here where they're giving you the stats on the storm. They'll tell you the radius of 50 knot winds. When it's in hurricane strength, you'll see 64 knot winds. And when it's even strong, you'll see 100 knot winds. But 50 knot winds. So 50 knot winds go the sustained winds. This doesn't count gusts, obviously. 90 northeast, 70 southeast, 60 southwest, 30 northwest. So the radius of gales is 150 northeast, 130 southeast, 90 southwest, and 60 northwest. So the gales, the wind field, because it's weakening, is now beginning to shrink and will continue to shrink. And of course, the storm is also fanning out, so that's going to help the gales now start to shrink down. And as we go through time, you'll notice if you go through the forecast period, as the storm weakens, you start to see the wind field disappear. So this is a good place to go if you ever want to look up what the gales are and the distance that you've got the gale force winds and the storm force winds, which is 50 knots, and the hurricane force winds that are 64 knots. The storm is fizzling out from the standpoint of its from being a hurricane, Ahmed, American, we the people. But remember, this is the rain is going to be unrelenting right into Sunday. Let's see. Yes, right. If the weather, that's a Philip Neary. Yeah, I mean 40 inches of rain. I guess maybe that is probably a good an analogy to use here to give you the magnitude of it. You're talking about if it were snow at a 10-to-1 ratio, it would be a snowbank 40 feet high. And in terms of the volume of water, it's I forgot how many trillions of gallons of water we're talking about here. This is a ton of water. And Joyce Mack, I will try to get well rested. Thank you so much. Monica Calderon, with respect to Virginia, it's the rain. You're a big state, so if you could tell me where in Virginia you are. The heaviest rains, I think, are going to be in the western part of the state, and that's the part of the state where you don't need the rain. I think most of the rain, the state has gotten plenty of rain this summer in particular. The eastern part of the state is going to get less, but central and west could wind up with a substantial amount of rain, maybe a 4 to 6 inch rainfall. Again, that's going to depend on where, does it go west of the Appalachians, or does it go along or east of the Appalachians? That could make a big difference in terms of how much rain you get. Susquehanna River, Sierra Sites or Sites. I hope I got one of those right. The Susquehanna River in Lancaster County is still high. If you get the rain, you're in big trouble. I'm well aware of that. Yes, the rains, the flooding rains in parts of south central PA have been extensive, and the track for the European would not be a good one for the state of Pennsylvania, where you're going to wind up with some areas getting a 3 to 5 inch rainfall. Would not be a shock to see that much. What kind of wind are we looking at near Sumter, South Carolina? You're going to have a northwest wind. That center is going by to your north, and it's weakening, so wind is not going to be a big deal for you. Okay, just remember that. Fireman Brian, thanks for being here. We're worried with orographic effect in southern West Virginia and West Virginia. Well, I would be concerned. I think what we have to wait for is to see once it gets under tropical storm strength. What are we going to have left? I happen to think that we are going to have an intact circulation that you're going to be able to identify on the radar all the way up. So we maybe by later tomorrow we could have a pretty good idea how much rain. I hate to be evasive, but you've got a problem there with how this is going to track. And with the mountains and the lift. You could certainly wind up with a substantial amount of rain in excess of 4 or 5 inches. We'll wait till tomorrow. We know that the potential's there. Which way this is going to go, we'll wait to see what we got in place tomorrow morning in terms of the structure on the radar and the satellite, and what the models might be doing with it, and then maybe we can come to a better idea of what kind of rain you're going to get. Warriors Mom, look, several inches of rain and 5 inches of rain, you start throwing numbers out. The one good thing is, at the point where the rain does get up into West Virginia and Virginia, this low will be starting to move along. Right now, it's moving at 3 or 4 miles an hour. That is the huge problem in the Carolinas. If this were moving at 15 or 20 miles an hour, at least you could see sort of a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of the rainfall. But because it's moving so slowly, the rain is just basically sitting there in the same place. As I pointed out earlier, and I looked at the radar this morning. You looked at the radar this morning, and you looked at the radar now. It didn't really look that much different. So that's not good for this area. It's just pounding them in a big bad way. But at least where for you, we are, for your area, the low will be moving along at that point and also beginning to accelerate a bit, which is good, because then you'll get your rain. It'll play through, and then it'll be done. I've got the WPC map. We'll start with that because I want to move around and just start showing some weather that's going on elsewhere with all of this. And there's your rainfall from the Weather Prediction Center, and they have that stripe of 5 to 7 inches kind of pointing up there in western Virginia and in eastern parts of West Virginia. And actually, the way they have the map drawn, if you follow the trail of the purples and reds, so WPC, the Weather Prediction Center of the National Weather Service, basically taking a track up into west central Pennsylvania and taking the surface low along the New York State, Pennsylvania border, and then eastward from there into northwestern Connecticut. And it's from there north and west you get that narrow band of heavy rain. And in the case of Miss Seitz, who was asking, or Seitz, who was asking about the rains in south central PA, this is from WPC. They have you in that 1.5 inches, which is certainly better than 3 or 4 inches. But I want to be careful here because, again, if the Europeans' idea of it being further south, somebody's going to wind up getting clobbered. Now, in the Gulf Coast, where we've got flood watches up from the disturbance that didn't really develop into anything as far as a tropical depression or a tropical storm, you are going to see additional rainfall amounts of 3 to 4 or 5 inches in much of South Texas. And this is where we've got the some flood watches up. And the Storm Prediction Center, you have SPC and WPC. So this is SPC, so they handle the severe weather. You've got a tornado watch that is up for North Carolina right now because there are going to be tornadoes being spawned by all of this. And you also have a general risk of thunderstorms, but no risk area being indicated for southeast Texas. But you can see the arc of the precip there. It's kind of got that arc that a low with an inverted trough has as it comes inland. The showers kind of are getting extended well to the north in bands. So that reflects the nature of the tropical system that has moved across the Gulf of Mexico. That's not going to develop. It's run out of time and space. But the rains did survive, and they are moving into South Texas at the moment. Bring me up full here. There we go. We'll chat some more. It's okay. 5 people have died. So that is the death toll so far in North Carolina is 5. And you know, I'm you know, some of the trees falling on a house I heard with a woman and her infant child were killed. And you know, it's horrible. You know, it's really horrible when with these storms. That's why I try to tell you what some of the weather enthusiasts who get all excited about it, these things, and I understand where you're coming from, but you got to temper your enthusiasm and be a little bit careful. Let's see, Aaron Thompson. There's so many bands of a hurricane, lots of different storms. Packed into one gigantic storm, which makes this so dangerous. It's a very good point. Yes, these bands that come in, the bands of heavy downpours, thunderstorms, they spawn tornadoes, and then you get a slight break in between bands. The rain lightens, the wind might slightly subside, and then the next squall band comes, and you get big gusts of wind as that squall band goes through. It is all part of the process. Breanne Jordan. We just did Texas. So if you just posted on late, we just showed. Let me see if I could. You know what? I can bring up. Give me a second here. Let's give you the full radar loop. I'll bring the radar down. We could take a look a bit better here. Let me get the window up. Go. Just give me a second. I have to produce, direct, and I'm talent for these shows. So I'm a one-man band. Here's the latest radar, the rain that's coming in off the Gulf of Mexico from that system that's now in the Western Gulf and not forecast to develop into any kind of tropical depression or tropical storms, just a little bit too late. But we do have some moderate to heavy rain along the South Texas coast, running down to past Corpus Christi and inland. And the bands actually penetrate fairly far inland up to San Antonio and almost to Del Rio. So they go pretty far west, and the northern bands actually extend fairly far to the north. You're gonna probably see this last for a while until that whole disturbance works its way inland. So I imagine you're going to see this going through the overnight into tomorrow. I admittedly have not had a time to look. I'm going to look off camera here. Hang on. You know what? This might not be a bad time. We'll take a look really fast at the weather around the country, because I see some snow. Okay? And that's up in the northwest, because you got the trough in the west, so that's where you're going to see some of this. There we go. Maps courtesy of tropicaltidbits.com. So there's your rain in Texas. There's Florence on the GFS. And if you look up in the northwest, you got rain coming into Washington State with snow in southwest Canada. And that rain in Texas starts to diminish when we get into Saturday night and Sunday. Florence, you can see it, the remnant low goes pretty far to the left on the GFS, and the European is further to the right. There's the battle here. So is it, Kentucky, where it's west of Cincinnati, not too far southeast of Louisville, into southwest Ohio? Is that low going to be there Monday morning, or is it going to be more like in somewhere in West Virginia? Those handful of miles make a huge difference, and mainly the track of the GFS is one of the more northerly tracks. And then we get a little shot of dry air. Now, this is another thing. With respect to models and how they've been handling the long range, this was where the GFS last week had this big high coming down with lots of cool, dry air, and not the case. I mean, it cools off and the humidity drops, but it's not going to be, one big push of autumn weather from that first front. We're going to have to wait for this second front, apparently. That is what the GFS says. The European's a little more robust with that shot of cooler air for the middle of the week. So I'm hoping that's right, because I want to enjoy a couple of cool days. And then next weekend, a front that has a bit more push to it comes through with a shot of autumn air just in time for the first weekend of autumn. And this weekend, of course, being the last full weekend of the last weekend of the summer season. It's over, and now we're going to start thinking about those winter things soon, because I know all the snow folks are going to be coming out. Speaking of which, let me at this point remind those of you who are on Long Island, or if those of you who would like to make the drive to Long Island, I will be at the Deer Park Library in Deer Park, New York, which is not quite halfway out, but it's not that difficult to find. Just check on my Patreon page. I have a link regarding this, and you can come on out 1 o'clock at the Deer Park Library. And by the way, those of you who are in New Jersey, I will be at the Springfield Library in, I want to say Springfield, New Jersey. I'm doing this from memory. That's going to be on Wednesday, October 17th. So a little over a month from now, I'll be making my first New Jersey library appearance. So if you're in New Jersey, you can come out to see me, and we can talk hurricanes, as I think they'll still the tropical system will still be relevant at that point. And we'll also start to talk about maybe a little bit about the winter season. Ricky Rick, Cape Fear River is close to 17 feet. If it reaches 22 feet, the nuclear plant could possibly melt down. I really don't know too much about that, but I'll check. I'll do a little digging and see if that's the case. Not doubting your word. I'm just not really very familiar with your area. That is not a good thing. Philip Neary will be there, cigars in hand. Oh, very cool. Thank you. So you're coming out to Deer Park? I really appreciate it. Thank you. That's very kind of you. You don't have to bring the cigars, but thank you just the same. Really appreciate it. What is my favorite weather-themed movie? Scott Briller. God, you know what? I don't know. I don't know that I really, I kind of like movies in general. I'm a big old movie buff, so if it was made in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, especially if it's in black and white, I've probably seen it. I kind of do like movies where they have when they have scenes of snow in them. That's kind of nice. But as far as a movie that some of these the storm theme movies like The Perfect Storm and what was the other one, The Day After Tomorrow or something. That's my other problem. If it was made after 1960 or 1970, I probably, there are a few that I know, but I'm not a big moviegoer anymore. I just don't care for some of the stuff that is passed out for entertainment. I like the old stuff, but I don't really have a favorite weather themed movie. Let's see. Okay. Humphrey Bogart movie, says Iron Mine 10. Yeah, absolutely. Especially the ones with Lauren Bacall in them, and the dialogue between them is just amazing. And I love Key Largo. Great movie. Great movie. Love Bogart as Captain Queeg in the Caine Mutiny. That is an absolutely outstanding performance. All right. You know what? This is probably one of my shorter live streams that I've done. So I need a break. So I'll tell you, tomorrow, I think I'm going to just limit it to one unless there's a reason for me to do more. But we'll limit it to one live stream tomorrow because I'm going to need at least a little bit of a break. And definitely just one live stream on Sunday. This is my last day of double live streams unless we wind up something seriously changes. But just want to tell you one more time, or for those of you who have joined late, you can, if you are interested, you can support what I'm doing here and what I'm doing elsewhere with respect to my 3 websites and other things. I have an app that's going to be coming out soon. We have it almost done. So it's just a matter of waiting for Google and iTunes to sign off on it, I think, and hopefully in a couple of weeks it'll be available. It's going to be free. You'll have access to my website and the latest videos. Very easy. Pull it up fast on your phone and it's there. But you can combine that with my Patreon page where everything is on there. No ads, videos, stuff that's only for Patreon members, videos that will only be for Patreon members. We will be in mainly a troll-free, flat earther-free, geoengineering-free, and weather controller-free environment. I've got a couple of tiers in there. They start at $2 a month. Pretty much covers it all. Covers most of it. There's nothing really that different between the other tiers. It's just that if you feel more generous and you want to buy me an extra cigar, you can go to $5 a month or $10 a month. But most people go with the $2 a month one. It's $2. It's a cup of coffee, and you can message me. So if you're not on Facebook or if you're not on Twitter, don't spend too much time on Twitter. But if you have a weather question or whatever it might be, or a comment, and you want to speak directly to me, or you can comment on the post. It's easy to do, and nobody's going to cause nobody should cause you any problems because everybody's that's there wants to be there because of meteorology and weather. So my Patreon page, please consider it if you'd like. Again, it's only $2 a month, and that's it. So I'll put the link up on the chat board for you for anybody who wants to. I know Scott Briller, who's on this watching the video and on this board, he raves about it. Philip Neary, swing by the house for some coffee or espresso one day. Will do. I'd like to. That'd be very nice. Thank you. William Hooper, I know you're coming to Deer Park on Sunday. No going to do doubles for Nor'easter this winter. My days of doing doubles are getting pretty lean, and I'm getting pretty tired. Justin Wright, Thank you. If you do on the search, it's Joe Chaffee or meteorologist Joe Chaffee. It should come up. It should come up there on the Patreon page. Thank you very much. Johnny Quest, thank you. You be careful. You pay attention to the weather out there in Western Virginia because you may have a problem here with this remnant low coming up, and we're going to definitely stay on top of it. One last, again, for those of you who've come late, as I've said this many times, please consult your local National Weather Service office or the National Hurricane Center regarding any decisions that you have to make in regards to threats from tropical storms or hurricanes. Weather models shown on here on this live stream and weather models in general are not to be used for making decisions. Also, obviously, it's 7:53 p.m. Eastern Time. If you're watching this on a replay, it's dated. So the radars, the satellites, everything is old. So you can get updated weather information by going to your local National Weather Service office at weather.gov. And one last thing, if you shop on Amazon, do it from the Amazon link that's on the descriptor to this video or on the live stream. We're a participant in the Amazon Services LLC Associates Program, which is an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for us to earn fees by linking to Amazon.com and their affiliated site. So if you shop on Amazon, you get your stuff at the great Amazon prices, and Amazon throws me back some coin. It's not out of your pocket, it's out of their pocket, and I get myself a couple of cups of coffee and an extra cigar or two every once in a while. Thanks very much for being here. Really appreciate it. It's been really exciting this week to see the big crowds coming on the channel and the new subscribers. Welcome to all my new subscribers. Thanks so much for joining up, and please participate in the chat going forward because we love to hear from you. Take care. Joe and Joe Weather Show on Facebook tonight on my Facebook page, Meteorologist Joe Chaffee. That's at 9:15 Eastern Time.